Kamala also let in 25,272 illegals convicted for rape, sex offenses, or sexual assault. 62,231 criminal aliens convicted of violent assault. Everything but death happened to the people they assaulted. In total, she let in 425,431 people convicted of, and these are convicted of the worst crimes. They're criminal aliens, along with an additional 222,000 illegals with pending criminal charges. Many of those charges also are murder, which will add on to your 13,000 murderers that were let into the country. That's over 647,572 migrant criminals who Kamala set loose to rape, pillage, thieve, plunder, and kill the people of the United States of America. And they're not going to change. They're only going to get worse. They're only going to get worse. And our law enforcement system, we have the greatest in the world, but our people are told not to do their jobs. You know, we don't want you to do anything. And they come from tough systems. They're going to love our system. Kamala is mentally impaired. If a Republican did what she did, if a Republican did what she did, that Republican would be impeached and removed from office, and rightfully so, for high crimes and misdemeanors. That would be high crimes and misdemeanors. Think of it. 13,099 murderers convicted of murder, not like convicted of murder. Some of the worst murders you've ever seen. They're all in our country now, every one of them. And I've been saying this for 3 years, and the fake news has been saying, well, you don't know that. Well, now we know it. They've never released a list like this. Not just on this, they've never done it. Over the years, they've never done it. She let in, and that's not even mentioning the rapists, the gang members, the drug dealers, the child predators, and the traffickers in women, mostly women. Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. Okay? She was born that way. And if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. Anybody would know this. And before I knew the numbers, I was saying it for a long time. They're coming in, they're murderers. I said it so much. They're from jails. I say jails and prisons, there's a difference. One's a little stronger than the other, as you understand. They come from mental institutions and insane asylums. How many times have you heard? There's also a difference there. One's a little bit stronger than the others. And they're terrorists. They're terrorists. They're terrorists at the highest level. We have some of the greatest terrorists in the world in our country right now. We have no idea where they are. We have no idea anything about them. They could be in Iowa. They could be in Idaho. They could be here. Because every border is right now running around every state. Every state is a border town. Every state is a border state. Well, you got a lot of killers in our country. You saw that yesterday. Last night, after 4 straight years of obliterating our border, I watched this show that she put on. 4 years of the most incompetent border anywhere in the world in history. Kamala Harris traveled to the scene. In fact, she stood near where I put up border wall. That was her backdrop. And in one of the most heinous crimes ever committed by any administration in American history, that's what she did by allowing these millions of people, millions and millions of people, to come through our border and make our civilization very unsafe. It's a civilization, very, very unsafe. It's a heritage. Border Czar Harris went to the border to lie in the most shameless and horrible way possible, at the very site where she released so much suffering, misery, and death. There's no greater act of disloyalty than to extinguish the sovereignty of your own nation right through your border. No matter what lies she tells, Kamala Harris can never be forgiven for her erasing our border, and she must never be allowed to become president of the United States. She must never be allowed. And Wisconsin, you can't do it. Can't do it. What she's done is a total disqualifier. What she's done, and so much death has already taken place. And we have some people up here, and a friend of mine in particular who suffered greatly because of it. And this has already taken place by the hundreds, but it's going to take place by the tens of thousands, according to explosive data that was just released yesterday by ICE. And they've never released this before. They never talk about deaths and how many. They talk about certain things, but they've never released this kind of information. But it was so bad, never done, but under Kamala Harris, more than 13,099 convicted murderers. So these are people that have gone through the system. They're convicted. They're in jails for life. Some are getting the death sentence. But instead of that, they've crossed our border. They've been taken out by their countries and set free into the United States of America. So they're free to kill again. Oh, they'll kill. These are killers. These are killers that at a level that nobody's ever seen. Not even your great law enforcement has ever seen people like this. They got a dose of it, though, recently. They got a dose of it. Their jobs have become a lot tougher. And you remember when they say, no, these are migrants, and these migrants, they don't commit crimes like us. No, they make our criminals look like babies. These are stone-cold killers. They'll walk into your kitchen, they'll cut your throat. They're flying them in by the hundreds of thousands. Can you believe it? Even yesterday when she was talking about how she's going to start getting very tough. Why didn't she do this 4 years ago? And she lies so much. She lies so much. How about she lies? She said Donald Trump ripped the babies out of the crib. I ripped the babies out of a crib. No. And it was actually President Obama that built the cages. Remember when they were saying Donald Trump, and they show a picture of cages, and then I was lucky enough, somebody from Border Patrol said, no, that was in 2014. That was Obama. And then that story went away very rapidly, remember? All of a sudden, the cage story went away when it wasn't me. Now she lies. Well, look, I mean, the simplest lie is that she worked at McDonald's, and she never worked at McDonald's. She worked at McDonald's, and I didn't work there. She didn't work there. But I'm going to go to a McDonald's, I think, over the next 2 weeks. And I'm going to stand over the French fries. She said, I stood over those French fries. She never did. It turned out to be a lie. And when I mention that, they go, oh, he's fallen into a trap because but you ever see that? Whenever I criticize, they say, no, they say, he fell into a trap, her trap. She can't set a mental trap. There is no. But if she says something wrong, like in the debate, she said something wrong, I question it. She said another thing wrong. I made her look bad. She said another thing. They don't want me to ever question. They said, oh, he fell into a trap. He questioned the fact on Charlottesville, which was totally debunked. On all of these stories that were totally debunked, fake stories, she mentions them. But yesterday, this is one I never heard, that I ripped the baby out of the cribs. No, that might have been Obama and other people, but it wasn't us. We had the safest border in the history of our country, and even a sign that I put down, fortunately. I put that sign down, and I love that sign. I love the graph. You know the graph? Like beautiful blue, gold, and red graph. It's my favorite piece of paper, perhaps anywhere in the world. But she's so radical, she even wants to legalize fentanyl right away. Fentanyl will kill you just a little tiny, on the top of a pin, and you're dead. I have so many friends that have lost their children to fentanyl. No, we're going to do something else. We're going to get China that if they send us any fentanyl, I had this deal done with him, but Biden never got it finished. Do you think he lies awake at night thinking about fentanyl and death?
Alright, guys, what you've just watched isn't just another Trump clip, and it's definitely not a random rant. That video was from during the campaign season, a moment when words are chosen carefully, emotions are amplified, and messages are sharpened to cut straight through voters' frustration. Donald Trump isn't explaining immigration on that video. He's accusing the system of collapse. He's accusing leadership of failure, and he's pointing directly at former Vice President Kamala Harris and he's saying this didn't just happen, this was allowed. Guys, that's a serious claim. And whether you agree with Trump or not, the reason these videos sparked a lot of mixed reaction is because it speaks directly to something a lot of people already feel but can't quite put into words. A feeling that nobody's really in control, a feeling that the rules aren't clear anymore, and a fear that the truth is being softened, filtered, or talked around. But here's the real question, and this is where things get uncomfortable. Is this just campaign fear mongering, or is it tapping into a real failure that hasn't been fully addressed? Because when millions of people share a clip like this, it's not just about Trump, it's about trust. And today, we're not here to cheer or cancel anyone. We're here to slow this down, separate the claims from the facts, and understand why this message hit as hard as it did. So, guys, let's talk. Because what you just watched was not a policy briefing. It wasn't a White House address, and it wasn't even meant to be balanced. It was campaign messaging. And campaign messaging has one job: to frame reality in a way that sticks. Trump wasn't trying to walk voters through immigration law there. He was not breaking down asylum categories or agency responsibilities. He was telling a story where the country lost control, a story where leadership failed, a story where danger wasn't accidental, it was invited in. Throughout the speech, Trump kept returning to the same idea that under the Biden's administration, people with serious criminal histories were allowed into the United States, and that Kamala Harris bears responsibility for that outcome. Listen carefully to the words he uses. He uses the word allowed, let in, and released. Those are not technical terms. They are moral ones. They imply intention, not confusion, choices, not overload. And that framing is deliberate, because once something is framed as intentional, that question stops being what went wrong and becomes who did this to us. That's a powerful shift, especially during campaign season. Now, Trump also used very specific numbers in that clip that you just watched. And guys, numbers are persuasive. They sound final, they shut down doubts. But immigration data is complicated by nature. Different agencies track different things: encounters, arrests, convictions, removals, releases, and pending cases. These categories often get blended together in political speeches, not just by Trump, but by politicians across the board. That doesn't mean people's concerns are imaginary. It means the story is being simplified to deliver impact. And the impact Trump is aiming for is clear. The system failed you, and someone is responsible. That someone in this framing is former Vice President Kamala Harris, according to President Donald Trump. Now, let's slow down here because context matters. Kamala Harris was assigned a role focused on addressing the root causes of migration, particularly in Central America. That role did not put her in charge of border enforcement or daily immigration operations. But campaign speeches don't operate on organizational charts, they operate on symbols. Trump collapses the complexity of an entire administration into one name, one face, one target, because voters don't emotionally connect to systems. They connect to people. As the speech, continued, Trump's tone sharpened. He moved from criticizing outcomes to questioning competence, judgment, even fitness. That shift wasn't accidental. Once the argument moves from your policy fails to you should never be trusted with the power, the goal is no longer debate. It's disqualification. And that is why that clip, felt so intense at some point, because it's not asking voters to compare ideas, it's asking them to reject a person entirely. Then there is the imagery. That speech was built on imagery. Every state is a border, danger is everywhere, no one knows who is in control. Fear does a lot of work here. And fear resonates because immigration isn't abstract for many Americans right now. Cities are struggling with shelter capacity, local budgets are strained, communities are confused by mixed messaging from officials and media. So when Trump speaks with certainty, even aggressively, it cuts through that confusion. That doesn't mean the picture is complete, but it explains why it spreads. Now you'll see people who responded to that, clip when it was circulating online saying, this has been debunked. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Debunking exaggerations doesn't restore trust. You can correct a number and still leave people feeling unsafe. You can fact-check a claim and still avoid answering the deeper questions people are asking. Is anyone actually in control? That's the question Trump, was trying, to make people understand. And guys, and confidence matters during, campaign season. Meanwhile, response from officials often sound technical, cautious, and defensive. That creates contrast. One side speaks boldly and emotionally, the other speaks precisely and carefully. In politics, boldness often wins attention, especially when people already feel unheard. Now, zoom out, because, that clip wasn't just about Trump versus Kamala Harris. It was about an immigration system that was never designed for the scale, speed, and complexity it's facing now. Both parties know this, and both parties avoid saying the hard part out loud, that fixing it would require real enforcement decisions, humanitarian limits, and political risk. So instead of fixing it, they campaign on it. Trump frames the issue as betrayal. Democrats frame the criticism as exaggeration. And in between are voters who feel like no one is being straight with them. Here's my opinion, clearly labeled. I don't think campaign speeches like this solve immigration, but I also don't think dismissing them as pure fear-mongering works anymore. When millions of people share, a video like that, it's not just because they were misled. It's because something in it matches how they already feel. Some feeling like being overwhelmed, uncertain. And guys, until leaders address that feeling, not just with data but with clarity and boundaries, moments like these will keep happening. The rhetoric will get sharper, the accusations will get louder, and the trust gap will keep widening. That clip was not just was not just about the cost of immigration. That's sorry guys, that clip was not the cause of immigration debate. It's a symptom of unresolved policy, public anxiety, and a political system that fills uncertainty with fear. So whether you agree with Trump or not, ignoring why this message resonates missing the So whether you agree with Trump or not, ignoring why this message resonates misses the point. People aren't just reacting, to what Trump said. They're reacting to years of unresolved tension. And until that tension is addressed honestly, expect more moments like that from all the sides. People are watching, people are listening, and people are deciding who they believe can take control. That's where I'll leave it at today. Anyway, that's all for now. I'll update you with more news. Please hit the subscribe button, guys, and also don't forget to turn on the post notification bell so that you can always stay updated whenever we post a new video. And guys, please go ahead in the comment section and tell me, did you like our commentary today? Yeah, let's meet in the next one. Bye.